I'm gonna start this off super cheesy. Look, up in the sky! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's my spoiler talk. Yes, Superman has been out in theaters for a weekend now, so let's talk some spoilers here. That is a spoiler warning. If you have somehow not yet seen Superman and you're planning on it, best to fly away from this video because I will be talking about what happens in this movie in detail. But since you have seen it, or if you don't care, then you're good to stick around. Alright, so let's fly into this just freaking awesome movie, dude. So this movie begins in Antarctica, where Superman's about to crash, but first we get this text on the screen with some pretty important information. I mean, just right off the bat, for the last 3 centuries, the last 300 years, this universe has had metahumans, superpowered people. The text says they ushered in a new era of gods and monsters, which is the name of this first chapter of the DC universe, which I love. That was a great way to do that. So the world has known superheroes for the last 300 years. Now, Kal-El landed on this planet 30 years ago, which would make Superman in this movie my age. So that's pretty cool. And actually, I love this opening text the whole way, because it goes by multiples of 3, which happens to be my favorite number. 3 weeks ago, the country of Baravia started invading Jarhanpur. 3 minutes ago, Superman lost the battle for the first time against the Hammer of Baravia. And this is where we enter our story. Superman is taken to the Fortress of Solitude after being saved by Krypto, and we see this recording from his biological parents from Krypton, Jor-El and Lady Lara, which I didn't even recognize. I guess Jor-El was played by Bradley Cooper. Yeah, I didn't recognize that was him at all until I saw his name in the credits. That was great. And so this message that they sent with Kal-El kind of covers part of the origin story about how Krypton is blowing up and our hope goes with you to Earth. That's the first half of the message. The second half was damaged in transport, which is really important, and that'll come later. So we have this whole Baravia Jarhanpur situation. Real world parallels aside, I felt this was a good way to represent what Superman is trying to do, as in he's not trying to represent any country or peoples, but rather just himself. Really, he's trying to represent all of humanity and the good it can be. Therefore, he wants to save the oppressed, which is good. So the Hammer of Baravia ends up being Ultraman. Yes, Ultraman. So Ultraman, he's a character from DC Comics, but he's different in this movie, and I'm just gonna cut to it now. He's a clone of Superman made by Lex Luthor and Luthor Corp, just not nearly as intelligent. I actually pegged that pretty early on. That's how Lex and his crew were able to get into the Fortress of Solitude. Superman's like, how did they do that? The fortress is coded to my DNA. Right there, I was like, oh, I know. Ultraman must be a clone of Superman because he has Superman's powers, so there you go, he's a clone. That was pretty easy to figure out. And Lex also has the engineer, who she was really cool in this movie, dude. Her body's just all made of nanites, just nanobot technology. Coolest part was when she did that handstand and just repositioned herself to stand upright. I was like, that's cool. And also cool thing about her, I guess she's gonna be part of The Authority, which is another movie coming up in this DC universe. So I guess we'll be seeing more of her in the future. That's awesome. So we come to civilian life in Metropolis. We learn that Clark Kent has been dating Lois Lane for the past 3 months, which again, adding to that 3 motif. I love it. And of course, she knows who he is. She knows that Clark Kent is Superman, hence the whole interview that they do. Which, man, talk about a realistic scene right there. That scene, it goes from casual to really, like, serious. They're arguing about morality versus politics. Just that entire scene, all 12 minutes of it, just going through the motions. It's so realistic. It was brilliantly written. Big props to James Gunn on that. And still touching on the civilian life, Jimmy Olsen being a total ladies' man, which... You mean to tell me this dweebo is a chick magnet? That was a pretty funny joke in the movie. And also that does end up being important as well because of Eve Teskmacher. She's obsessed with Jimmy Olsen and she sends him a bunch of selfies. At first she kind of annoyed me because she's the total Instagram model type, but she does end up being important because all the selfies she sends to Jimmy Olsen, they actually pay off because of what's in the background. I'm kind of skipping ahead, so let me get back to it. Rick Flag Sr.'s in the movie, played once again by Frank Grillo, who voiced the character in Creature Commandos. So yeah, same character, looks different, doesn't have the bright gray hair that he did in Creature Commandos, but whatever, I guess. He's a general in this movie, but we already know that in Peacemaker Season 2, he's gonna be the new director of Argus, so that's interesting. And we come to Lex Luthor. Now, he has his whole force called Planet Watch, which includes the Engineer and Ultraman, and his army of Raptors, pretty much just soldiers in mechanized suits, which could lead to Lex having his own mechanized suit later down the line, like he does in the Injustice games. That could be neat. And his motivation, I love it, because it is his envy above all things. The way he breaks it down towards the end of the movie, and actually throughout it, the point where he's like, I hate all metahumans, but Superman is so much worse. He's not a man, he's an it. And then towards the end where he's like, yeah, the envy is my motivator. He's like, you are destroying us. That is classic Lex Luthor, because it is that fear of the unknown, fear of that next step in human evolution, so to speak. So he wants to eradicate it. That's good for him. So he gets into the Fortress of Solitude, which is being guarded by Krypto. He needs Superman to be distracted in the meantime, so they have that big old kaiju that attacks Metropolis. I don't know where this kaiju kaiju came from. Did they abduct it? Did they create it? Who knows? But it's cool looking. And this whole action scene was just so entertaining to watch. Again, with Superman being the Superman that I know and love, when he saves that lady from being stomped on, he says some words to her. He's like, deep breaths, you're gonna be fine. I was like, yes! Again, I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but he didn't say, I got you. He said, you're gonna be fine. I was like, that's Superman. I look up to you, you shining symbol of hope. But then this battle gets interrupted by the Justice Gang. So the Justice Gang, Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, sponsored by Maxwell Lord and Lord Tech, which kind of reminds me of The Boys in a way, from what I know about that show anyway. Guy Gardner is a total dick, who's pretty funny and his powers are neat. Hawkgirl is really cool, although she'll straight up murder presidents. Seriously, at the end of the movie when she just straight up drops the Baravian president, I was like, oh, okay. You're not Superman, you're... She's got kind of an attitude of her own. I'll say this though, Isabella Merced worked out for this movie. Those biceps, do you see those? Nice. And then there's Mr. Terrific, who got a lot of screen time and focus in this movie. For being the most emotionless of the Justice Gang, and kind of the least interesting of the three in my opinion, he was the most important of the Justice Gang to the story of this movie. He has his T-spheres. He was still fun to watch, don't get me wrong. Plus he had his funny moments as well. I do want to give him props. So in the aftermath of this big kaiju fight, we learned the translation of the second half of the message that was sent by Superman's biological parents. And it turns out that in this DC universe, Jor-El and Lady Lara, they're dicks. Cause I guess they sent Kal-El to Earth to rule over everybody as a tyrant. Cause the message just straight up says, rule without mercy, take as many wives as you can. I was like, whoa, okay. Didn't see that coming. Holy shit. Yeah, that'll mess with Superman in the head. The public turns against him, of course. Lex Luthor uses that to his advantage, claiming Superman has a secret harem. I wonder what that would look like. Alright, cause this ain't an Ego the Living Planet from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 situation here. Kal-El ain't like that. We do get a cameo from Christopher Smith, Peacemaker here though, which was great. Didn't know that was gonna happen. I cheered there along with the audience. And of course, he's totally living up to his character there. He's being interviewed. He's like, yeah, Superman thinks he's better than us. He's just jealous of how jacked I am. That was great. And that leads into this whole pep talk scene with Lois Lane. The scene that some people were bitching about when they saw it in the trailer. When they're talking with each other and that big fight is happening in the background. I personally thought that was pretty funny. Cause Superman's like, I don't know what I should do. Meanwhile, Green Lantern's fighting this big dimensional imp in the background. It was great. Supes is like, yeah, it's just some dimensional imp. They're taking care of it. I love this scene. And so we learned that Lex Luthor has his own little pocket universe, which yeah, totally reminds me of Peacemaker's pocket universe that he has in that show. A tear in the fabric of space. And when Superman is brought to this pocket universe, it's where Lex Luthor keeps his prisoners, and he's got his little monkey bots doing the whole social media bombing, which I was like, okay, that feels like kind of a cop-out, because I feel like there would be people in the world who would be talking shit about Superman no matter what the situation was, you know? If someone's famous, they're gonna have haters. That's just naturally gonna happen. And they're not gonna be little monkey bots. But in any case, this is where we meet Metamorpho, Rex Mason, who Luthor calls the Element Man. Weird that he's never actually called Metamorpho in the movie. But he's actually a cool guy who helps Superman escape, and he saves his little baby son Joey. Cause Lois Lane meets up with the Justice Gang in the Hall of Justice, which is still being constructed. So it's like in this movie, we have the very beginning workings of what's eventually gonna be the Justice League. James Gunn said in this universe, we don't have the Justice League yet. It's not yet been formed, but we do have a Hall of Justice. So we're in the building block phase of that. Makes sense because we're in chapter 1 of the DCU. Justice League is still a ways off. So Lois Lane and Mr. Terrific tags along. They go to save Superman. We have that one-shot long take of the Mr. Terrific action scene. You would think that the one-shot long take in this movie would go to Superman, but instead it went to Mr. Terrific. It was a cool scene for sure. Just kind of took the focus away from Superman for a little bit. Not that I can complain too much though, because at first I wanted this movie to be a Superman-focused movie, and it is, but really this is more of a Superman and Friends movie. Not a bad thing, just not what I initially wanted from this movie when it was first announced, but at this point I've gotten used to it. So I'm cool with it, and I embrace it because it's awesome. Again, this is an established DC universe after all. So after Superman is rescued from the pocket universe, he's in bad shape because he's got kryptonite poisoning because of Metamorpho. Superman is taken back to Kansas, where we officially meet his adoptive parents, Martha and Jonathan Kent. Yes, Jonathan Kent is still alive, which alright, I guess the death of Jonathan Kent is not as much of a canon event as I thought it was in Superman lore. There's been a bunch of different ways they go about that. Sometimes both parents die, sometimes they're both still alive. Alright, fair enough. But this scene between Clark Kent and Jonathan Kent, where John's like, your choices make you who you are, because Clark Kent is still bumming out about that message from his bio parents. He's like, I was sent here to rule, and I don't know. Jonathan Kent straight up delivers the Iron Giant message.
You are what you choose to be.
Yeah, that straight up made me think of the Iron Giant, which was partially inspired by Superman, so it all comes full circle. I love that. That's yet another thing that really made this movie hit home for me and made me go, yep, that is my Superman movie. So we're getting to the big finale fight of the movie. The portal to the pocket universe is left open too long, so it starts making this big old tear in the earth, which is gonna tear everything apart, makes a big old black hole. Yeah, that's bad news. That's pretty big. Earth is pretty much gonna go the way of Krypton, if we don't stop this, that is. So Superman zooms back to Metropolis. This is where we get to the big fight between him and Ultraman and the Engineer, which, oh my god, not only does Superman get his ass beat a lot in this movie, but it does something with him that I really loved, and that is, it makes him not indestructible. Because in most Superman lore that I know, and by most I mean all, his only weakness is kryptonite and other magic. Other than that, he is invincible. He doesn't bleed. But in this movie, in this universe, that's not how it is, and this might be a hot take, but I love that. Because if he's invincible, he's broken. He's not brave, he's kind of boring, and he's not relatable. Superman in this movie, he gets his ass beat, he bleeds a lot. This is the most vulnerable and therefore relatable Superman I've ever seen. Period. And yes, that might be inaccurate from comic book Superman lore, but I've always been like, yeah, just make that change anyway. It makes him more relatable. And in my opinion, the worst beating he gets in this movie is from the Engineer when she covers him with all those nanites and they get into his eye and his mouth and his lungs. I was like, ugh. That was really gross. It made me almost sick. And when he has to pull them out through his mouth, it's like, ugh. I was like, yeah, appropriate reaction to that. He beats the Engineer by pummeling her into the ground, knocking her unconscious, so she's down for the count, but again, we'll see her in the Authority, and Superman beats Ultraman, which, side note, I even love the parallel in the naming of Ultraman. Ultraman, Superman, pretty much means the same thing. That's cool. But he beats him by literally throwing him under the bus, and the bus plummets into the black hole, so that's that. Superman gets to Lex Luthor, and we come to this scene, another scene which I absolutely loved, cause it's his big hero speech. Cause he's like, you're wrong about me, Lex. I'm as human as anyone. I love, I get scared. I am human, and that's my greatest strength. Again, I was like, Superman? Again, I feel like I'm going back on being a Henry Cavill defender, because my god, this is so much more Superman than Henry Cavill ever was. This is just so definitive Superman. It's amazing. It's inspiring. And then Lex Luthor is about to have his big comeback when all of a sudden he just gets torn up by Krypto. This is the moment I said in my review where it seemed like it was going to be a big dramatic moment and then it got stepped on by a joke. I kind of wanted to hear Lex's big comeback to Superman. He gets started with it, he says a few words, and then Krypto just beats the shit out of him. I was like, oh, okay, really? You're kind of proving Lex's point in a way, Krypto. Yeah, if I were in charge of the movie, I wouldn't have that in there. I would have Lex finish his big speech and then have Mr. Terrific close the rift, which does end up happening, so the day is saved, and so we have victory! The media and the people turn on Lex Luthor because his big plan was revealed. We get a Maxwell Lord Sean Gunn cameo. That was cool to see, and it was funny too, because he's like, yeah, we can all agree that Lex Luthor sucks. I was like, damn, yeah, it must really suck to be Lex Luthor right now. Lex is sent to Belle Reve Prison. We DC fans, we know what that is. Big location when it comes to Suicide Squad, that's where they're incarcerated. It's pretty much the other Arkham Asylum, and it's where Lex Luthor is gonna be for now. So Superman goes back to the Fortress of Solitude, where we get the biggest surprise cameo of them all, Millie Alcock showing up as Kara Zor-El, Supergirl. I was like, oh shit. Yeah, had no idea that was gonna happen. Supergirl showing up, cousin of Superman, but she stumbles in drunk, and it turns out she is actually the proper owner of Krypto, which would explain why he's so poorly trained, because she's not exactly the proper training type, now is she? At least from what we see here. She's pretty much just a college party girl. She likes to get drunk on other planets with red suns, since Earth has a yellow sun, it affects Kryptonians' metabolism so they can't get drunk. So Kara Zor-El parties on other planets. If I had to guess, she is the way she is because she's really jaded. From what I know about what James Gunn said about Supergirl in his big announcement video a couple years ago, she was raised on a chunk of Krypton and had to watch everyone die around her, so she's just depressed. So she gets drunk and parties all the time. But you know what? She'll get her redemption next year, when her own Supergirl movie comes out next summer. Until then, though, Superman is resting happy knowing he has saved the world. And that's our Superman movie. Nice job, James Gunn. We do have cute little mid and post-credit scenes. The mid-credit scene is straight up adorable. We saw it in the TV spots where Superman and Krypto are sitting on the moon looking at Earth, and Krypto gives Superman a hug. We, in the audience, we were all like, aw, that was so cute. And then the post-credit scene, that was pretty funny. It's Superman and Mr. Terrific looking at a building that has come back together, but it's misaligned. Mr. Terrific's like, what, you expect me to fix it? And he walks off, and Superman's like, darn, I can be such a jerk sometimes. That was funny. I get that, yeah, post-credit scenes, I prefer them to show what's coming in the future, but we did already get that before the credits with Supergirl, so that's fine in this case. In conclusion, Superman, I love this movie. It's definitive Superman, it's pretty definitive DC. It sets up an amazing world for what's to come, which I can't wait for. Peacemaker Season 2 next month. The Lanterns TV show coming next year, along with Supergirl and the Clayface movie also coming next year. If this first Superman movie is anything to go by, this DC universe has a bright future ahead. And like James Gunn himself said, I couldn't be more excited for it. So that'll be my question for you, my fellow moviegoers. Are you excited for what we have ahead in the DC universe? And of all upcoming DC universe projects announced so far, which one are you the most excited for? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!